even though kind of the punchline is that we are swimming in a sea of mind and everything is
Mhm.
thought, that it's really helpful to do the practices to become aware of, trying to find each thought and trying to become aware of each thought and trying to question the validity of each thought and find out why exactly it is that this thought feels really valid and this one, just doesn't. Like, why does this one feel to me to be true? I mean, right now, if I'm trying to think of a good one. Um, yeah, that like it feels true to me that the earth is largely covered with water, right? Because I have learned that that's the case. But even so, if somebody was online and saying, no, there's actually, very very little of the earth's surface is covered in water. It's almost entirely land mass, and then you have, a little puddle here and a little lake there, and that's it. That would feel inherently wrong because it contradicts, everything that I've learned. So the question is, what do you actually feel in your body when you are confronted with a contradictory thought?
Hmm.
Because that is the physicality of it is going to give you some feedback into why this thought feels in my gut to be true. Or, we would say like it feels viscerally true that the it's daylight during the day, or, the sun is out during the day and the moon is out during the night. You have a feeling if somebody tries to tell you otherwise, you will feel something in the body that responds to that. There is a very strong bodily component to that feeling of certainty, and also the feeling of your certainty being challenged. Um, people just go online on comment sections and, go to like a flat earth video and read the comment sections. People, even if you can't feel what those people who are responding are feeling, you can tell uh, the aggression and the all capsness of the responses, that they are feeling something in the body which is being propelled, through their text. So notice what bodily components make you feel that something is true, and also that feel challenged, that come up in challenge when you're confronted with an opposite idea or opposite belief. But notice also when you have an idea about whatever the thought is, I'm not a good person, for instance, you will feel, if that's a long-standing fundamental belief, you will feel certain cascades of sensation through the body when you think it, but you'll also probably notice a little montage of some sort of images showing up of reasons why you are not a good person. A little best of reel reminding you of all of your greatest hits of being an asshole. Like that will probably come along with it. So notice that. Notice that this is in cahoots. You have a thought, and then there's this kind of um sycophantic little part of the brain that's just like, yes, 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 here, I'll give you examples to prove that you're correct, here. And just notice those little examples that are popping up, that they're not real, they're not true, they are but supplementary thoughts that are being evoked because,
Real.
something in the mind thought of something, and you have all of these little supplementing thoughts that come up in support of it. Be aware of those. So yeah, so notice the physicality of the belief, notice the supplementary thoughts of the belief, and just be aware of anything else in your experience that might come up that gives that one particular belief any sort of footing, any sort of feeling of verisimilitude. There's got to be something that is noticeable, but again, you probably won't get to the like real world why, right? Just like if you're
Okay.
right, the way that I kind of see it is like, um if I say, Like if I hit this glass with a hammer and it breaks and the coffee pours out, you could ask me, why did that happen? And I would say, well, the hammer hit the glass and the glass broke and gravity acted on the water and it poured out. And that seems like a reasonable explanation. But you could go so much deeper into the atomic structure of all of that and into all, I mean, I can't even fathom the layers of, physical explanations that could actually be behind that. We're just at the like most gross level of metal bangs glass, glass shatters, water pours out. I think our experience is the same way. We really can't fathom the level of intricacy of what is going on in the brain and in the interaction with the environment. And so coming to a real grounded why of why anything is the way it is, I think is just simply beyond our capacity as primates.
Huh.
But within where it's like a functional why to get to is, yes, if you bang a glass with a hammer, it will break. If you have a thought and you feel this thing and you're not aware that you're feeling this thing, and if you see these other thoughts and you're not aware that those are supplementary thoughts, and if you aren't aware of the whole milieu in which that thought is appearing, then I believe it. Right, that's basically the level at which we're working here,
Huh.
and so we're just becoming aware of what is your actual experience of thinking, breaking it down into as many components as you can find that are available right now to awareness, because again, there isn't, we can't, mm, with meditation practice and with inquiry practice, you can kind of hone your awareness or your microscopic abilities to notice more and more subtle sensations and to notice more and more subtle layers of thought that you hadn't noticed. We can improve those things, but there are fundamental limitations because you are still using certain mechanisms of interoception and just limited capacities of awareness of what is going on in our experience. So within that awareness, or within that range of improvability, hopefully you can, get clearer on a lot of these things than you are before you start meditation practice. And I'm sure yours are way clearer now. You have much better sense of what's going on in the body and much better sense of what's going on in the mind than you did 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? Hopefully this is the progression, but you're never going to have it's like trying to work on your eyesight so much that you can see an electron without an electron microscope. Probably unlikely. Same
Right.
sort of thing, right? Be mindful of not looking for the ultimate why, but simply the why enough. The why right now does this feel true to me? And then simply by having that question mark, by having that doubt about whether this actually is true, because that's our first step, right? Most people don't even question a thought. It's just a thought because I thought it and it must be true.
Right.
By having that layer of questioning where we're pulling into doubt whether any thought that we have is actually accurate, and then analyzing to the best of our ability to whatever with whatever equipment we have, developed at this point, we investigate our senses, all of them. We investigate whatever internal thoughts happen to be coalescing around the original thought that seems to give it weight, if there are any. Notice anything that shows up in your experience and just be aware that those are all supporting aspects to why you feel the way that you do, that this is a true thought or a true belief. And let that be enough to where you sit there from your kind of elevated perch, aware now that that belief is just a belief, that the belief is just a thought, that that feeling that I have in the chest or in the gut that clenches up when I think of it, or that heaviness when I think I'm a terrible person, and I get that same slumping heaviness and that same withering pulling in, and all of that that happens every time I think of that thought. Recognize each of those as the physiological signatures of just what they are. That the body is sloping in, there's heaviness on the shoulders, you feel a certain weightiness. All of that is contributing to the words that I'm a terrible person. But like we've talked about in the past, you haven't even gone to define what a terrible person even is. Like all of that is taken on faith. It's just shorthand created by the mind. There's no further introspection into any of that. So the more we can develop that level of awareness that recognizes, okay, the body is slumping when it hears or thinks certain words, that the mind generates a sentence that creates a cascade of things that happen in the body and also in the mind, and that whole thing creates this sense of that's a true thought or that's a true belief. When you're seeing it from that secondary perch where you're aware of it, you feel it, but you also feel that it's just the body in response to something, that it's not me who is truly dejected and who's truly a bad person because I'm in this posture. You're simply aware that the body is reacting in a certain way. Like if you touch poison ivy and the body starts reacting with itchy blisters, you don't think I, am you don't identify with being affected by poison ivy, that it's like a fundamental flaw in your being or something,
Right.
right? It's like it's an allergic reaction to the oils that are on the, so it's just the way that that the skin responds. It's the same sort of thing. We can have that remove where we can see the skin reacting to poison ivy and not take it personally. And we're developing the same response to the body slumping in and feeling, heavy and dejected and crying and having all of the other experiences that it has. We can develop that awareness where you can observe it, you can feel it, you can live it, you can be doing all that, and also know that, yeah, but it's not actually the entirety of the experience, is it? It's not actually built on something fundamentally true, is it? There is some question about the validity of every part of it, just because we're aware of the the conditioned nature of our experience.
So I feel like it might be a good idea to kind of sum this up really simply at this
That
point.
would be good. Please
Um,
do.
so
Good luck.
you should know better by now.
You
Um,
know, you're good at this. I'm not. So
so what you're saying in a nutshell is that to take on a practice of questioning thought and to focus mostly, or this is based on what I've seen on the internet, where people
yeah.
put the focus on the thoughts exclusively.
Mm,
So whether exclusively or even largely putting your focus on the thought is um, is kind of a fundamental error in the inquiry,
mm,
because we need to question not just the thought, we need to question the beliefs about the thought, we need to
mm.
question the physical sensations that arise when a thought happens. There are all of these other components that need to be examined and taken into account if we're going to question the truth of the validity of thought.
Yeah. And I mean, there's something to be said. Everybody has different practices that speak to them. So I wouldn't say it's a fundamental error of just
Mhm.
focusing on the thought, but in my practice, it was way more powerful to become aware of the totality, the holistic experience of every
Mhm.
thought than just focusing on the sounds of the thought in the head or the imagery of the thought in the head or something like that. Because, or the more conceptual, again, if you don't have sound or visual thoughts. But, and again, I just wanted to, when you say to question the, all of those aspects, yes, but I just want to make sure that the questioning isn't being done through more thought. I think maybe just open observation is maybe a better word than questioning in that regard, because it's observing what's happening in the body. It's observing the sound of the thoughts. It's observing the supplementary thoughts that come on. Um, it's not so much like questioning to go deeper into them, or
Okay.
investigate more, because that can just lead you into spirals of more thought, more thought, more thought. What
Right.
I'm really talking about is just this open awareness of, when I have a thought like, you know, I'm there's something fundamentally wrong with me, and I feel this cascade of that happens in the mind and the body. Just open awareness of what is happening in the body right now. How does it feel? How is the body responding? What is happening in the realm of thoughts? All of them, not just the original one, which arguably is gone by the time you are aware of it,
Right.
right? But all of the supplementary thoughts that come on immediately afterwards, which seem to give credence to that original thought, which is no longer in existence. Um, if that thought comes back around again, just notice it's a new iteration of that same old thought again, and recognize, how does it affect the body? How does it, do, does it have any connection to the external world, right? Like, it's really, I think, helpful to question call into question any the validity of any aspect of the experience without intentionally questioning it, right? It's being aware of it with kind of an open curiosity, but without probing for a specific answer. And that's really what I'm pushing back with the word question, is because
Okay.
I do kind of feel like there might be, when you say it, like an actual looking for something.
Okay.
And what I'm suggesting is a passive but curious observation of what's going on, so that you are just aware of what is happening, and that awareness effectively breaks the spell of the belief in the veracity of whatever the thought was. But you don't have to do that by like digging deeper and deeper and deeper to find some kernel of crystal, at the bottom, that you're gonna like recognize it now. I figured it out. I got it.
Hmm.
It's not that. It's in the looking is the finding. In
Hmm.
being open and observing and just seeing what's there without the initial learned bias of, um, when you have a thought originally, we learn to take all of that, the whole holistic picture of it, all at once as a true thought. So when someone asks you your name and you just immediately respond with your name, and it feels true to you, that is, the whole learned experience has happened at once. You've learned that when a doctor's office calls your name and you immediately respond, and it really feels like you that they're calling, you will feel certain recognitions light up in the body when you hear your name called. You will, immediately, unquestioningly respond. You will have this whole internal image and internal thought system that creates what Darrell is supposed to be in the world, and how you think the dental hygienist or doctor or whoever is calling you is going to see you as, right? All of that is reflected immediately when you hear your name being called. And instead of like looking for what the real crystal of Darrell is that's underneath all of that, or what the real crystal of the belief is underneath all that, what we're doing is simply openly observing, when you hear your name called, what are all the different parts of that experience that light up, and taking it slowly, one by one. So, hear your name, maybe like record your name onto a tape or something being spoken, and you can, or, I'm very old. I just recommended people putting it on tape. Um, or recording it into something. So you into your phone, you play back I can't believe that my mind went to tape after. I mean, this is the perfect example of like old programming being coming about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, Playing, just record the name being spoken on the phone, and every time you play it, notice right now I'm just going to be aware of what happens in the body when I hear my name. And then tune in to all the different things that flutter or tighten up or happen when you hear that and be aware that's what's happening in response to the name being heard. And then pay attention to the visual thoughts and the auditory thoughts and any other things that show up in the thought space when you hear the name and becoming aware of that over and over again. Just that open awareness of it without identifying with it, without putting anything more on it than that, that awareness of what happens in all of its different components breaks down that that spell of hearing the name and feeling the totality of Darrell just being evoked immediately. Does that
Well,
make sense?
oh, absolutely. It made sense then, and the way you explained it before. My concern was not anything to do with what you're describing. My concern
Okay.
was with what I've come across, looking at things whether on YouTube or things elsewhere on the internet, is that, and I could be misunderstanding what I've seen, but it
Mhm.
sure sounds this way. It seems to be very focused, um, exclusively or almost exclusively on just the obvious first thought. Like you
Mhm.
have a thought and then the idea is to question that thought. And it as what I've seen has never once said anything, what I've seen and heard has never once said anything about questioning the thoughts that follow it, questioning the
Yeah.
sensations that arise in the body when when a thought becomes present.
Mhm.
Um, it hasn't said anything at all about the beliefs about thought. And
Mhm.
the beliefs about thought have been present in every single thing I've seen or heard. And
Yeah.
no one has said anything about, hey, there's a belief you have about the thought. You need to check that out too.
Yep.
It's all been very very single pointed to the point of having left out everything else you've described. And so it seems to me like we're doing ourselves a disservice if we're only focused in on that sort of thing in that way. We're doing
Mhm.
ourselves a disservice if we're not taking out what you have referred to as the holistic experience of thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Again, different strokes for different folks. For some people, it might be more helpful to just home in on just the thought and just do that. But again, in my experience and from what I've seen, working with other people too, I just find it to be way more powerful to take in everything, not necessarily all at once, but like I described, even piecemeal, so that you can really develop that awareness more and more of all the components that make up this experience.
Well, intuitively, that makes more sense to me, and it feels more correct
Right.
without really meaning to put any kind of judgment on it. But it does seem more, it does seem to have more oomph because, like, for instance, when you mentioned, the beliefs about a thought, well, that's part of the whole package.
Yeah.
How can you be looking at examining the validity of thought if you're not looking at the beliefs you have about it because they go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And always remember, everybody who's watching this, beliefs are also just another thought. There's no there's
mhm.
no special class of thought that is a belief. I mean, we tend to use that term as though it really denotes something very special and almost unshakable. And I mean, even like legally protected, you know, like my beliefs are, you know, sacred and,
Right,
cannot be questioned or challenged. And, yeah, it's great that we have laws that allow people to believe what they want to believe as long as it doesn't infringe upon the rights of other people.
right.
But I think it behooves all of us to question exactly why that particular belief, which is just another thought, has been elevated to that status of having some special character. You know, where did you pick up that belief? Why does it seem true to you? What grounding do you have to believe it? And let that open up the whole Pandora's box of questioning everything.
Well, even when you asked that, the question that first popped up was, well, what even is a belief? I mean, it just seems like a thought that is invested with certain types of emotion.
Yeah, it is. It is. And often has, you know, it depends on what kind of belief it is, but we have usually experienced something or been told something in a way that it becomes unshakable in ways that, the thought all monkeys wear suspenders is hopefully kind of questionable, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't really have the same thing, but the beliefs, whether it's personal or religious or scientific or anything else that people take on, it is in the individual experience always just another thought. It
Right.
may or may not be true. The whether a belief exists or a thought exists, it may be true, it may not be true. The fact that you hold it doesn't mean that it's true, though. It's yeah. It, so I think one of the hardest things with doing this work is that people have to eventually get really honest with themselves
Hmm.
and question all of those things which seem to be taboo and unquestionable. We grow up thinking you can't question certain beliefs, certain aspects that just seem foundationally true. I think it's very important to question why they got elevated to that status to begin with, and what proof do we have that any of that is actually worthy of that um,
Hmm.
that energy, the devotion, the belief, all of that we put into it. And it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. Some people it's much easier than others. Um,
Right.
but for a lot of people it's a real struggling point because we're basically taught not to go there
Right.
societally.
Yeah.
You know? So this is where we shake off all of the indoctrination and start to find that we are nothing but, just like I said, our entire experience is just a sea of mind. Our entire being is just one nested belief on top of another. And a lot of them are, some of them are conscious, but a lot of them are like unconscious beliefs because they're just like the foundational axioms of how we think everything around us is created. And as long as it's, this kind of unquestioned assumption about how things are, it's just another belief that can be challenged. And again, we may accept it, it may withstand the scrutiny and we still hold on to it, but it doesn't mean um that it shouldn't be questioned and shouldn't be challenged in some way. And at the very least, just observe. Everybody needs to observe their experience to find out what it is actually like to believe that belief and to challenge that belief. And what would it be like to live a life without that belief present?